Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Dan, did you do any gardening this weekend?
Yes.
I know I sort of thought you were the gardener. So I tried for about 45 minutes and I got attacked by bugs. So I
Oh,
said, that's it. I'm out of here. I have bug bites everywhere.
oh no.
So anyway, I'm not a gardener.
I attempt it. I end up getting frustrated and mad, but yes, I do. This was
That's great.
thankfully that it was a nice weekend and I was able to get some stuff done. But it's one of those things that like I can work all day in my yard and then at the end of the day still look at my yard and feel like I did nothing.
Oh, I doubt that's true. I doubt that's true. I planted a whole bed of lavender
Oh,
in a
nice.
place that so to make
Ooh.
it deer resistant, right?
Yeah,
And it got a lot of sun, and so I never watered it, and which it likes dry.
right,
And then it died. So I'm like, wonderful.
right, exactly.
So the deer are definitely staying away from it because it's dead.
Yeah, right.
They say deer don't like eating hostas. I think that's that plant. That's not true. There's nothing else to eat. I could come back in the morning. They are down to the ground. They eat those big, huge leaves down to the ground.
Well, I have a whole garden of hosta, and I mean, I'm gonna, keep knocking on wood, but and a lot of it's within our fence, but a lot of it's out of our fence. And for whatever reason, it has stood the test of time. I mean, obviously I didn't plant it, the people before me did, and it survived. But yeah, deer have not gotten near it.
And to get to mine, they have to cross over the little flagstone, go into the garden and go to the very back because it's the last set of plants up against the house.
And they
So
still
make
get
an
it.
effort to go get them.
Huh.
And Dan, you're going to have to just cut all of this out because we're having a good conversation, and
course.
I just let the
Sorry.
record button. Nah, I let the record button go because I know we'll edit.
I trim and edit it before I
You
post
trim.
it.
Good morning, David. How are
Hey,
you?
David.
Hi, Jody. Hi, Deborah.
Ooh, you sound tired.
I am.
That's a tired sound.
I know. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why I'm so tired, but I am. But not
Because
to
it was
worry.
Mother's Day yesterday and you spoiled Hillary?
Of course.
Is that? There you
Not
go.
even, not
There
even a
you
question.
go.
That's not even a question, right?
See, I'm going to keep that in the recording so David can
Yes.
show that at any point in time.
We'll always have the original.
That's right.
We're
What he
just
really
waiting.
said, what actually happened.
We're still waiting for Michael and then and Steve if he'll be joining us. I think he is.
Let me make sure. So the link in board book and the calendar brings you just to the webinar. The link that got emailed that says we have the meeting tomorrow is what got me right in.
That's funny because I clicked on the one in the calendar.
And you didn't go right
And it
into
brought me
the
right in. Yeah, I
Oh.
clicked on the one in the calendar.
when I
Okay, I
click
see Michael here. I'm
Okay.
promote them. And I see Steve. I'm promoting them right now. Yeah, that's funny. I clicked on the one that was on our calendar link. Because that's what I always go to, and it just brings me right into Zoom, and I just open it up.
You probably know somebody on the inside.
I guess so.
Hmm.
Because
Morning.
they haven't. That actually the links haven't been changed at all. It's a recurring event, so it's the same, basically the same calendar event that just copies over. But that's
Jody,
okay.
Jody, I use that link. I use the webinar link that was in the calendar, and it didn't look like you saw me for a while, at least. Like it didn't bring me right in.
Yeah, it's funny. You were sitting as an attendee. I just saw that. Everybody else popped in. I don't, it's like it's technology. I can't explain it. I can't. Dan probably because I popped in, Deb popped in, Dan popped in,
That's
and so
right.
did Jim. So
Strange.
I
Yeah.
can't explain it. But anyway, we are all here. We are
Excellent.
ready to go. So whenever you want to call the meeting to order, you can take over.
All right, let's do it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. A little muffled, but I hear you.
Captain Michelli said he's having a problem with the Zoom link.
Ah,
So was
I'll
I.
go email him.
He's trying to get in,
Let me go send him an email.
and
Jim, I'm gonna come over and see you because you definitely sound like you're underwater. You may have
Yeah.
to change your microphone in Zoom, to the proper microphone client.
the webcam microphone.
Yeah, hang on 1 second. I'll be over there in a minute.
Yeah, Jody, let's hold off for like 1 minute.
Okay, yep.
Jim, weren't you in charge of the scuba team?
I just
We had better
texted
comms when I
Joe.
was in this. We had underwater comms that apparently sound better than this.
So I'm saying you probably know somebody who can do underwater comms because that's right. That's what you're doing in Fairfield.
Good thing is Dan's office is right across the hall, so he should be here in a second. But Captain Shelley's trying to get in too.
Yeah. I just texted him, but Jim, if you're texting him, tell him I sent him an email with a link.
That's so weird. Dan went from the left side of my screen to the middle of my screen. Like the Brady Bunch. Dan, if you look
I know.
up and look down,
How do we not sound now? Do we sound like we're underwater still?
Yes.
Yeah.
now we don't hear you at all. No audio. Jody, what is it? At the 9-month anniversary, you got a laptop that works? I forgot what is it?
Exactly.
9 months? Okay.
Exactly. It's funny, I just verified the link directly from my Zoom account and what's on the calendar, and it is the same exact thing. I'm looking at them both. Yep. That's weird. Oh, I see Joe. Here comes Captain. Okay, Captain, I see you in the waiting room. I'm promoting you to a panelist, so when you see it pop up on your screen, accept. Here he is.
Dan is
All right.
running around behind the scenes.
Now I see Captain here.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Hi, Joe.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good,
We are
thank you.
all present and accounted for, so Michael, you can take over whenever you like now.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that Jim is weighing in on a bunch of these topics.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, he's still working on, I see.
Yeah, and it looks like they're running around. So
Oh,
Well,
that's
maybe they can share Dan's screen. Let me see if I can get them.
Like the airplane waiting to take off, and the mechanics are running back and forth.
exactly. Oh, wait, they're still there.
there you go.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good.
Oh,
Oh, wow. That's better.
This is your captain speaking.
Exactly.
loud and clear.
Okay.
All right, you sound great. All right,
See
you want
how
to get
long,
started?
let's count the seconds till Dan gets back to his office.
Now, is this why
Running
they
across
can't
the
land
hall.
planes at Newark, Jim? Because you stole the headset?
Right. Yes.
Oh, God, poor Newark Airport.
All right, I'm ready, Jody. Let's kick this off.
You can call it to order. It is 8:39.
Okay, 8:39 a.m. Welcome everyone and good morning to the Safety and Security Committee meeting. It's May 12th. This is a day ahead everyone is here, so appreciate that. I want to kick it off by just saying, as I say at the beginning of every meeting that we have, look, the goal of this committee is to promote safety and security of the district, as well as to enhance transparency and communication with the community. Again, I just want to reinforce that we love to hear from people. Please feel free to email us with any feedback, questions, concerns through email. We gladly take the information, and we try to address it as best we can in these meetings. Next item up is the approval of minutes. David, Steve, not sure if you've had a chance to look at those, but if you have from April, any questions or comments on those minutes?
Do not.
No.
Me neither. So can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
And a second.
Second.
All right. Moving on. Discussion of safety and security topics. So there aren't any announcements this month, so I want to kick it off with a few items to update everyone on. The first set of items here is under personnel development and professional training. I'll kick this over to Jim with, I think, two exciting programs that, if I'm correct, Jim, we've never actually engaged our security specialists in. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Surma and Nazra?
Sure. So I've arranged to have professional development training for our security staff. For those of you that are on this that don't know, Connecticut Interlock Risk Management Agency, otherwise known as CIRMA, is widely recognized for specialized training. They provide risk management services to municipalities and school districts. They will be coming in on May 16th to train our guards in de-escalation techniques, which basically how to manage a situation with students calmly. So I'm excited about that. It's a couple-hour course. It's very similar to the course that our police officers get up at the police academy. So they're coming to provide that on May 16th. This is one of our professional development days. So faculty and staff will be in their classes, and now our security guards will. Along with that, I am excited to announce that the National Association of School Resource Officers have selected Weston to host the school safety officer course, which is pretty exciting. It's a 3-day course that is going to give our guards techniques on all things security related, from physical security, best practices to threat assessments. And what's important to, I guess, a benefit for our district is both of these are nationally recognized organizations that are coming in to teach our 7 security guards. So they'll all be in a line with, just kind of it equips them and legitimizes them and gives them some motivation to do better. I mean, they're already doing great, but just kind of it's good for them to be motivated, and they're all going to have the same training now. So that's coming up in August, like August 20th. It's 3 days. So they're going to come back a day early and sit through that course, which is 3 days. So that's the professional development I have coming up for the security guards.
Jim, I have a question just on the Nazra. How were we selected? So what does that process look like? Because I'm just curious as to why we had never. Look, this is great. These are new programs. I don't think, like I said at the onset, I don't think the security specialists have actually been a part of this of
No.
either of these trainings before. How were we selected? And was this something that you've been working on, I guess, for some time now? Because it does feel like this is an elevation in the training of the guards. And so tell me a little bit about again, the process, how we were selected, and why these things are so important from your standpoint.
So in my background, which, as you guys are aware, come from Fairfield, the lieutenant in charge of the school safety division, we relied heavily on NASRO for best practices. Again, they're internationally recognized. So I felt that it was important knowing that, listen, the Weston SROs, the sworn officers, have been through the NASRO courses to certify them as SROs. I found out that NASRO also offers a course that's focused on school security guards. So I inquired with NASRO, got on their waiting list, and the squeaky wheel concept. I kept emailing the contact, and she was able to work with me on a few dates, and it aligned with bringing our guards back only a day early. I know it's very, our guards, they work 5 days a week, and we can't pull them away from their duties, and there's no backfilling their spots. So I really, the hardest part of getting them, it was hammering down a date that they could all attend at the same time without taking away from their day-to-day activities. But I'm very familiar with NASRO. It's a great organization. Any school district can put a request in to host a class like this. Of course, there is a fee, but moving forward, I think it's going to kind of set the standard and give our guards some professional training from an outside agency.
Awesome. Was this something, just final question for me, was this something that
Mm.
you used in Fairfield, Jim? Did you have all of your officers, all the security guards trained with NASRO and with CIRMA when you were there in Fairfield?
So it's a different dynamic in Fairfield.
Okay.
I had 7 SROs
Yeah.
and two security guards. That's it for the 2 high schools. So it's kind of the opposite here. We have 2 SROs who have already been through NASRO training, and 7 security guards that have not. So I kind of just flipped it around and said, you know what, this is a good starting point for NASRO. I mean, for our guards in Weston, to bring them in and have them professionally trained.
Awesome. Any other questions from anyone? David, Steve, anyone else? Deb?
No,
Okay.
great, Jim. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Yeah.
Kelly's great.
I can also share the course objectives and outlines if anyone's interested. Let me know. I can send it. And Mike, I'll send it to you, and then you'll have it. If anyone
that'd be
asks
great.
detailed questions about the content of the course, then you'll have it.
Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah, no, I'd love to see that. And this is for all of our security specialists, right? It's not just for
Yes.
the high school. It's for
All of our guards.
Got
Correct.
it. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. If no further questions on that, let's move on. Jim, also there's this topic of just accessibility to the buildings and making sure, of course, that we know who's coming in and out. So I think there's an update here also on tightening up some of that accessibility, especially at the high school. So why don't you tell us about the FAB systems that you guys are putting in?
Well, we're adding more access control, fob access control to the cafeteria, one of the athletic entrances that leads out to the science wing. It's going to allow the staff to enter and enter the building more easily without having a key. We're just adding more fob entrances. The doors already had wiring in them way before my time, but the doors are already pre-wired. Someone had the forethought many years ago to add that. So it's an easy lift for the installers to add those 3 access points, one off the cafeteria that leads out to the field, one in the gymnasium, older set of doors that leads out to the field as well, and one in the athletic wing that leads out to the science wing. Common problem is doors being propped open. We know that's a big vulnerability. So especially this time of year, there's practice going on. Kids are running in and out with equipment. They don't have keys. They don't have access. So this is going to be another tool, another layer, if you will, to add access control to those 3 doors that will be used by the athletic staff in and out, and the cafeteria staff.
And so you've done this so at the upper school. Are you going, and I assume you are, which is going through, are there any other doors at any other of the school buildings that you see that would benefit from an upgrade like this as well?
Not that I'm aware of yet. This was brought to my attention by Dawn and athletic director. Oh, help me out, Dan. Mark,
Mark,
Berkowitz.
sorry. Yeah, this was brought to my attention a couple months ago about those 3 doors that are heavily used by our athletes. And that it could really be beneficial to add those. So put them on my list. And we had Omni out here last week measuring for wire, and those should be installed. I believe we're going to install those when school closes because it is going to require a lot of work from the Omni Data guys. Not something that they can do really quick after hours.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Any questions on this from anyone?
My only question would be, so yeah, with the doors being propped and adding the key fobs to them, are those, is that the same door? You're adding key fobs to doors that often get propped?
Yes.
So I may have missed this, but the reader, the key fob reader should be able to tell you if the door is open or closed, right?
Not yet. That's coming. That's on my list.
Okay.
That's another layer that it's another, once these access control fobs are in place, then we can add that system to a Vigilon. But that's a whole nother layer of, and maybe Dan can, the IT part of that. But that's coming as well. We're going to get there.
Okay. And the only reason I bring it up is because if you add a key fob to a door that's typically propped, I feel like you're inviting more propping of the door because now more access will occur through that door.
Once that door has that access control fob system in place, it will allow us to then be able to, we'll be able to tell. Like right now, if there's no access control fob, door can be propped open all day and we have no idea. But with those fobs in place, those access control electronic mechanisms in place at each door, that allows us to be able to regulate and say, wait a minute, the door's propped. This door's propped. It tells the security guard that that door's been propped. It prompts them on their computer.
Okay. So it's kind of like a twofer.
Correct.
You add the key
The
fob.
first step is to add the key fob system in place. And then from there, then we can activate and build off of that system and add those prop alarms, if you will.
Okay. Great. So will you have, just to be clear on this, Jim, you'll have this fob system in place. Will you have the ability, will you have the quote unquote upgrade that is the ability to know if the door is propped open? Will you have that in place before the beginning of the next school year?
That is my
Okay.
goal. That is my goal.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. Steve, did you want to say anything?
No,
And
no,
that's
no.
just let me back up. That is something that can be rolled out to all of the schools. It's a system that's built into Vigilon, which is the company that we already use. So my plan is to have that rolled out all at once to all the schools. But again, if I have fiscal guardrails in place, I may have to do one school at a time, but I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What does that cost then if you did all the schools?
I do not know yet.
Okay. Yeah, just let us know, would you please?
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Jim. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, next item. I'll bring Deb in on this one, which is, I think, a system that many would say is probably long overdue. That we've sort of had the framework, for lack of a better description, sort of set up, but we've never. I think it hasn't been active. So Deb, if you can jump in here on this anonymous reporting system. That'd be great to hear about, just, next steps here.
All right, sure. I felt it was appropriate to bring the topic to the Safety and Security Committee. It's also been discussed on other fronts, including the work combat anti-Semitism and looking at the accountability piece in terms of deterrence and identification of possible behaviors of concern. So long story short, we've looked at, the staff has started looking at the different systems that are in place in other districts close to us. Westport does not use an anonymous reporting system, but New Canaan, Darien, Wilton, ER9, and I'm leaving something. New Canaan, did I say New Canaan? And Ridgefield, I'm sorry, that's one I left out. They are using anonymous reporting systems. And what that means is that there is a way to communicate information anonymously to an entity that then gets filtered in some way, shape, or form and goes to school staff. So it can be anonymous. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes people may choose to identify themselves. So of the platforms out there, there are some that are, given our needs, I think are better than others. One is the screening system that once you do receive a tip, who's listening, who's deciding what category it goes in, who's deciding how imminent or how dangerous it is. Is it a life and safety issue? Is it something that is a little bit less than that? So the product we are trying to narrow, probably, I don't want to say that we are, but it looks most likely so far that Sandy Hook Promise and their anonymous reporting system has the most potential for us. It's, you know, it's popularly used among districts who are using anonymous reporting systems. The information from a tipster will go directly to a set of people who are live 24/7, 365 degrees, or not degrees, 365 days. Sorry about that. So, and then it gets, and they are trained by the foundation or by that they see fit. And many of them, although I doubt that all of them, but many of them also have fairly sophisticated training in the mental health field, whether that's psychologists or social workers or school counselors, kind of thing. So from there, the tip is listened to, and the people can start a dialogue with whoever is reporting. And then they ascertain whether it's a life and safety issue, in which case it automatically, and this is important for the police department to hear, it automatically gets reported to the police department, in addition to central office administrators and the building teams. So those are the most sort of red flag crucial ones. And that, you know, that has to represent a serious threat to life and safety of self or others. Other tips, and there are 30 different categories of them. One category includes hate-based behaviors. Others include perhaps suicide ideation, eating disorders, gambling, alcohol, drugs, etc. So it is largely sort of behaviors on the mental health side is the way that these have traditionally sort of manifested themselves. And most tips will not be as serious as a life and safety issue. Most of them will be somewhat less than that, might be a bullying concern. And those are all reported to the school team. And there's usually a principal and assistant principal involved on that level. So that's what we're looking at. There are some issues we need to take by the lawyers. So Shipman and Goodwin are looking at the MOU that if Sandy Hook were the one we felt was the best, they're looking over that language. So in talking to other districts, a fear, or not a, well, maybe, okay, a fear is that how much vulnerability, how much responsibility does that put on staff off hours? Because as you know, emergencies can happen at any point in time. What happens on a weekend, on a Saturday night, etc. We were most assured by this particular product because it will report to the police department directly. So if for some reason all the administrative staff is out of the country or not looking at email or listening to their phone on a weekend, there's the police department that will catch the ball, so to speak. We're a small enough district, we're a small enough staff that I don't think it would ever be that hard to reach a person, in a dire emergency. But there is the police that are always there. I mean, that's their job, is to be 24/7, where the school district is not. So they also have, importantly, a whole lot of materials that districts can choose among to decide how to train their staff, how to train their kids, how to roll this out. We are looking at this particular system for being 6 through 12, but Sandy Hook has a early elementary component that really is trying to get kids to understand the notion of, if you see something, say something. If you're concerned about something, if you see somebody being mistreated or whatever, that you say something. And that's kind of an ethos that can get developed early on. So they have materials to help with that. So I just think all around, of all the systems they're not a huge number, but the ones that we've looked at so far, that seems the strongest for us. And Dan, I know, has a couple of slides, or at least perhaps more information from the technical side. So Dan, I don't know if you want to highlight something, and I've sort of given people a lot of information in a short amount of time. So if you want to repeat something that I've said, or perhaps more importantly, make it clearer than I did, that would be great.
Thanks. Debbie explained everything really well, just to kind of touch up on the little topics, the reporters, tipsters can report a tip via an app, via the website, and they can call a 1-800 number, a hotline, anything from bullying to self-harm to suicide. And we really did like what the Sandy Hook promise is because it starts with them beginning a conversation with the mental health professional, who can then process the tip, ask more probing information to try to get as much information as they possibly can. And then at that point, they say, vet and triage, categorize, deliver, and then hand off. And they have a lot of protocols in place on how to determine what level of a tip is, in terms of, is it dangerous? Is it an imminent threat? And that's basically everything. The brochures, they have the most robust, I'm going to call it, curriculum in terms of training for both staff and for students to see something, say something. So it's not just about using the anonymous reporting system, but it's the whole concept and idea of speaking to a trusted adult if needed, not being afraid to speak up. They have a bunch of materials that they can provide for the schools, posters, stuff like that. And the lesson plans and activities are fantastic, and they're constantly adding to the library. So it's not just the anonymous reporting system, but it's the curriculum. It's the entire encompassing concept of reporting. Anything they see is excellent.
Yeah, and the premise of all of these is that it's always better to do this to a person that you know in person. Obviously, say something to a trusted adult. But some situations, they don't occur on school property. There is no one to talk to, or people just don't feel comfortable, perhaps as comfortable as they might or they should, but they still don't. But this still provides an important avenue. Given Sandy Hook's background and the reason it was formed, the primary impetus at that point in time was to prevent gun violence, further gun violence. And Sandy Hook, and these are self-reported numbers, but the numbers of situations where they feel they've been able to avoid situations with gun violence, that they've been able to assist in possible suicides is pretty impressive. And in speaking to districts around here, no matter what system they've used, you know, when you can sort of reach even 1 or 2 or 3 students, you know, that's a lot. I mean, and it's also hard to count, as Sandy Hook points out, it's hard to count what you totally avoid. You know, you just, something doesn't happen, how do you count that exactly? But they've made some efforts, and they've been studied a little bit through a research grant at the University of Michigan in terms of effectiveness and ease of use and that sort of thing. Districts also have to be concerned about student information and privacy, et cetera. So again, that's why we need our legal advice on that one. So that's where we are. And I took it to the accountability work group that we're working on in terms of the anti-Semitic incidents and trying to bring down that behavior. And I think they're open to that idea. Our administrative staff, you know, have questions. And so Sandy Hook has been very good about getting into the weeds, and they will continue to get in the weeds. So there are a couple more meetings that have to happen, and perhaps the police department could attend that as well. But hopefully, if all goes well, we'd be able to bring a recommendation to the full board either in May or June for approval, so it could be implemented for next year. One good thing about Sandy Hook, and it is not the primary driver, because I go for the quality of the product rather than the price. But Sandy Hook is free, and the way they are free is because it's such a well-endowed foundation. So they're not looking to cut costs. They just don't need to charge a fee.
So that's great, because I had my 2 follows, but you guys answered them. Was, I guess, Dan, was how people access this service, right? Is it's a dial, it's a phone number, it's also an app / website as well, so people can do it in that manner. So that's great.
Yep.
Of the districts that have anonymous reporting systems around here, which it seems like everyone but Westport at this point, have you guys seen, does anyone else use Sandy Hook Promise? Do they all use Sandy Hook Promise? Do none of them use it? I'm curious as to whether, you know, how much these other supporting systems are using it, and then what their feedback has been in terms of the rollout, and then the, you know, the maintenance of the system.
Yeah. And the districts use different products. New Canaan and Ridgefield use Sandy Hook Promise. Darien and or Region 9, maybe both, use something called Anonymous Alerts. And Wilton uses a system called Gaggle. And Gaggle, in addition to an anonymous reporting, and actually they started out being more of a student account online monitoring system, which is also something that we want to look at again, because while we are using a system, we're not entirely happy with the product. Gaggle is better in that arena, but that's a slightly different issue. We'll bring that to you perhaps later. And then they more recently added an anonymous tip line. Sandy Hook seems to get to real people more quickly than the Gaggle system does. But they're both, you know, reputable products. I don't know as much about anonymous alerts. I don't think there's as much real a set of human eyes on the tips that come in, and there may be more of a straight line to the staff to try to figure out what's here in terms of categorizing the severity of the tip that they're hearing. So that's okay, but it's not the most helpful, at least in our viewpoint.
All right, great. So it sounds like we're well along the way there, and that this will be hopefully, you know, a feature here that the district will have going forward. I would say beginning next year. But this is 24/7, 365, as you said, Deb, right? So this is active even during the summer. Is that, just to be clear, is that correct?
Yeah. And again, we have some school staff here during the summer. And again, if it's, let me think, I got to think carefully. If somebody reports an incident that is not life and safety, it probably would not get addressed. I mean, it might get reported to us, but without the kids and the staff here, it would not get addressed. I'm thinking if there's a bullying situation going on, there's not much that a school administration or a school can do during the summer if we're talking about off-campus behavior. The principal would be around to look at it and maybe be able to make some phone calls depending on the situation, but not necessarily be able to fully address it. So, Mike, you bring up a good point in terms of if we adopt an anonymous reporting system, set the expectations so that they're realistic. So this is not call in and problem solved. Call in and it's going to get completely dealt with and investigated by school staff, no matter when it happens or where it happens. The expectations need to be much more realistic than that. The life and safety piece always goes to the police department in addition, on top of school staff.
I have a couple of quick questions. I think I heard you say at some point there'd be a different system based on age or school.
Yeah, the anonymous reporting system in terms of having the app, having the phone call or having the phone number, et cetera, and training students that opportunity is there, we would plan to start that 6/12. Could it be earlier? Perhaps. But I think it's better to start at the 6/12 level first and encourage kids younger than that to, go to their parents, go to a teacher, definitely use the live person, direct person that they know. And again, try to build that understanding that if something doesn't feel right or whatever, and they're too shy to say something, try to get that ethos of, go to somebody that you can trust rather
that
than
was-
pick up the phone. And again, the situation developmentally, the kids are going to be at different places and different perceptions and all of that.
Yeah, that's what I was asking because I thought that below the 6th grade didn't make a lot of sense for a system like this. So
Yeah.
then my two other questions are, is there any liability by providing the service if somebody calls and it's right? You potentially are going to have the young kids who don't like what was served for lunch, and you may have kids that actually are in crisis, right? So, like, is there liability just by offering this?
Yes, that's why we're having our lawyer look at it. One way is, again, trying to set the realistic expectation. This is not a service. Like if somebody reports an incident of bullying, it's not, imminent in terms of life and safety, that it's going to have to wait till Monday morning. And, then the school staff can take up and investigate, et cetera. It may not lead anywhere. But is there liability in terms of your now going out and offering a service you didn't before? And yes, there could be. I've asked we've heard two systems, have they themselves been sued? And Sandy Hook, at least the representative we talked about one situation several years ago that didn't go anywhere. The other system said she wasn't aware of any. I haven't heard, although I haven't asked a specific question, but I think I would have heard if there had been a local district that had been sued. So I can poke around with our lawyers more to see if there have been lawsuits against districts around this service, because that is exactly why it needs to get the legal review.
Yeah.
You don't want to leave a district vulnerable.
Yeah. I mean, I think from a bullying perspective, from a hate perspective, these types of services are really helpful. I just would be concerned if we message too broadly or people interpret the purpose of the service incorrectly, now it becomes a life safety or a child in crisis. So that would be a call to the police department. So that's I think I think on the on the surface, it's a great tool to have so students can report, but it has to be messaged and marketed, so to speak, that this is not life safety. This is not time sensitive. This is not urgent. This is a tip line. So that's just
Mhm.
you're
Well,
threading
I
a needle.
guess, yeah, that's an interesting needle, David, because some people, it will be a life safety issue. It
Right,
will be.
right.
You
So
know, they know their friend's in trouble and they don't know where else to go.
right. So from a messaging perspective or really maybe education, I guess it's a combination of two, right? It's educating the students that if you perceive imminent threat or harm, you should call 911. I'm
Well,
just, yeah,
you can, but this system says call them too.
right.
Absolutely, it does.
So maybe
It
it's a little
does.
bit like the doctor's office that, if you call to make an appointment, you could be making an appointment because you've got, whatever, something super minor, you gotta, whatever, right? The person they tell you is, if this is life threatening, call 911. And maybe by legal standards, that's sufficient. I don't know. So again, I'm just the type of person that looks at it from multiple angles, and I think it's a great service to offer, but I hate to open ourselves up to a liability issue on something that was good-hearted and it was intended. And now somebody dialed the number, they were in a crisis, they left a message on the non-crisis line and never called 911. And now we have a bigger issue.
Right, except that's not exactly the way it would work in terms of if you called up and you said your friend is, going to jump off the roof, and I'm sorry for the crude example, um, that the person that hears that, would say, just kind of make sure there's some validity there, that it's not a prank, and they do have ways to distinguish. That then they would turn around and they would call the police department, and they would call my office, and they would call the principals. So
Okay, so
that's what would happen.
okay, so I didn't take away. So this service is manned by a human
Yes,
24/7.
yes.
Okay, sorry, I may have missed that one piece. I think I may have with the summer school, and someone might not get back to you right away. So it'll be live 24/7. A referral could be made. The referral could be made to the school counselor for a non-time sensitive issue. A referral could be made to the police
Right.
department. Got it. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
and then,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's different levels, but your point's well taken.
yeah,
Because that is the fear, is that something drops
Right.
through a crack.
and,
So that's why we need to kind of poke around with legal, because you are taking on a pretty you are in some sense opening up the school world 2 hours beyond the school day. And the reason we like Sandy Hook is because if a really serious, I'm going to jump off the roof moment happens, that automatically will go, I mean, automatically, it has to still go through Sandy Hook people, but then it gets to the police department and the school district. And on off hours, it's the police department that will, need to deal with that sort of thing. But Johnny's being mean to Mary, and just keeps, knocking her books off her desk. That type of tip would wait until Monday morning. And there are 30 categories, and they tend to be around, more serious kind of interrelationship, not, David stole the cookies off out of the lunch line. It's not that kind of behavior. The behaviors, there are 30 of them, but stealing cookies from the cafeteria is not on that list.
And one of the good things about having them speak to somebody to get more information is that they can vet out exactly that. Somebody stole cookies, or and they can then wield it that way. Whereas other systems were a little bit more automated, and everybody got notified for everything, and then that would create a lot of confusion for the staff as to, well, what was deemed imminent and what wasn't. This helps really vet that out.
I think, Dan, it's important to mention to Mike and David, they're not just dispatchers. that are vetting these. There are crisis counselors. All the people that are answering the phone behind the scenes through Sandy Hook they all have mental health backgrounds. So they know what questions to ask. It's not just a dispatcher on the other line, which I've seen as well. They're just pushing the call off to somebody else. They all have mental health backgrounds. So it's important to note that they can vet these strategically with the background in mental health. So they know the proper questions to ask.
And just real quick, not trying to tie a cost to this, but everything does have a cost and there are trade-offs when we spend money. Is this a service that we have metrics so we can determine its utilization and what the cost of the district is? And can we unwind it if we want, like, do we pay a monthly subscription regardless of usage? So that the base of my question is, if it's not used, can we shut it down? Or once we've offered it, are we sort of obligated to
Yeah,
continue?
I think, again, I have to look at the MOU. I think the district sort of signs up, if you will, for a 3-year kind of stint. But, I think there's language that if you don't want to use it anymore, you don't have to. And remember that this is not a service that is Sandy Hook, given the way it's funded. They've got a foundation that funds this service. So there is no cost to the district that I'm aware of at this point, unless it's so minor that it, just doesn't count. There may be mailing costs in there or, postage, that kind of thing, but the service itself doesn't have a cost. The monitoring system of online accounts, school accounts, that kind of system does have a cost. And but again, we're kind of separating those today into the two parts, and we're just looking at the anonymous reporting system and Sandy Hooks. And that's not the reason we chose it. We didn't choose it because it was no cost. We chose it because of the most live people interaction and the training of those people.
No, that's great. Listen, that's great. Thank you for doing the work here. It leads me to believe, just sort of one last comment on this topic. I know we've kicked this around before, and Jim, maybe I'll start to work with you to sort of kick this off, but we should probably be thinking about, when we kick off the start of a new year, sort of what we're gonna communicate to families who are here, of course, new families that are coming into district, in terms of safety and security here in the district. Maybe I don't know if it's some sort of welcoming packet, along with, everything else that we provide to parents that are either have kids here existing or new to the district. And maybe safety and security can be a part of that. We can introduce, some of these services at that time as well. I think that would be helpful, and I think it would be seen as proactive by the community. And I also think it would probably allow us to cut off a lot of the, just initial questions and concerns that people may have, and answer those up front. So maybe, Jim, you and I can start to work on that together, and then see how we could weave it into the welcoming packet, let's call it, at the start of the new year.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Is just bundle all the, as general, obviously general description, but
Yes.
how your kids are safe during the school day. Yes.
Exactly right. Perfect. Awesome. Unless there are any other questions, I would say, so the next topic here is cybersecurity. I'm not aware of anything topical vis-a-vis cybersecurity, but we have you here, Dan. So is there anything that you want to speak to, that you want to highlight, or we should be aware of in terms of cybersecurity?
Yeah, so I'll just give a quick update. We are almost completed with our project of rolling out what are called YubiKeys, which is multi-factor authentication devices, in order to secure every single staff account in the district. That was a push that it took us a little while to get moving. Multi-factor authentication is like when you try to log onto a bank and it text messages you a verification code, and we're using an actual physical device that staff members will have to plug into their computers once to authenticate, and because a physical multi-factor authentication is the most secure form, and we really want to be as careful as we possibly can when it comes to protecting student and staff data. So the goal is to have all of them rolled out by the end of the school year, but we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we should have them all rolled out by the end of May.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, Jim brought that up last meeting, and talked about sort of the process and the rollout there. But it's great to see that you guys are ahead of schedule. So thanks for that. It's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so we don't have a spotlight conversation this month, so TBD for next month, during our, I guess, last meeting of the school year. Moving on, discussion of future meeting topics. Look, on the
Michael, can I just interrupt for 1 second? I'm just sorry, before we get looking at the future.
Yeah.
I just want to summarize where we are on the anonymous reporting system, that A, we're still doing research, but B, what we've heard so far leads us to continue that research. And that if it continues to yield, sort of the positive results and being able to answer people's questions, that we are hopeful to bring a recommendation to the board before the end of the year, whether it can be next week or June meeting. But again, we are still researching. We don't have a definitive recommendation at this point, but our thinking to date. So I just didn't want to make it sound like it's a done deal, because, things could change with the next answer to the next question kind of thing. So I just want to leave it at that point. So thank you.
No, it's a good call. And you mentioned before, but I think we had such an extensive conversation that probably good to reinforce that. Yeah, agreed. Awesome. We look forward to hearing a little bit more about that too, Deb, over the next month or so. Just discussion of future meeting topics. So I'll just touch on this. On the capital budget, look, the capital budget was passed, including the 100K or so for the safety and security measures, which no specific call out in terms of what that's earmarked for, other than to say that it's going to continue to work towards our efforts in supporting and strengthening the posture going forward. So that was good to see that passed. I want to skip down to trends in safety and security. So there is this trend, and I have it listed here as Chromebook damage trend in Connecticut, but I'll kick this to, I don't know if Jim or Dan want to take this, but there has been somewhat of a disturbing trend. Hasn't affected us as far as I know to date, but I think we're trying to be proactive about, how to address that trend and those concerns. So Dan, Jim.
Sure, Jim, do you want to start? You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a TikTok trend, the latest, where students are trying to get the Chromebooks to spark by using graphite pens in some of the ports. And it spread very, very fast. Within a week's time, there have been some districts in Connecticut that have had to evacuate. And there was actually a student on Friday who in Plainville who was hospitalized for severe burns for trying to do that. So I appreciate Jim getting that information out to staff the second he received it. It was within minutes that I had received it. Jim received it. The district has been fantastic with sending out the information to families. I'm sure you all received emails about this. This is a very serious thing. I don't think students necessarily understand you're not just potentially creating sparks. You could set the whole Chromebook on fire, and a Chromebook has a lithium battery. That is the last thing that you ever want to catch on fire. So we've been, knock on wood, okay in this district, but the communication has been fast. And so I feel that we've hopefully been on top of it. Jim, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add.
No, I'm connected through, it's called CTIC. It's Connecticut Intelligence from my police days, but I'm also connected. So anytime there's a trend, I get an email from the state liaison, which is the state police, through all the SROs. So we kind of, if something's happening in Enfield, Connecticut, I get an email about it. So these trends that are out there, I'm trying to get ahead of them. As soon as I get the email, I send it to the super, we come up with communication and get ahead of it, just like what Dan said. And that's exactly what happened in this case with these Chromebook incidents.
And Dan, just real quick, so two things. Crazy what kids find fun today. I didn't have to deal with any of that 20 years ago when I was in your job. I assume that there's two things that we're going to message the parents about or the kids about, or both, is one, it's dangerous, but two, it's costly, right? Because if a kid decides to try and short circuit a Chromebook and it catches fire, there's danger. Regardless, if they crack it open, they now have bought a Chromebook that does not operate. So are we messaging in both scenarios? It's dangerous and costly?
Yep, that was sent out. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, look, I also want to just commend you guys for the proactivity in terms of identifying the trend and bringing it to the attention of the staff and to the community. I think we've gotten a lot better at this over the last, let's call it, I don't know, 12 to 18 months, whatever have you. And I think it's so I certainly appreciate it. And is it gonna, does it mean that there are going to be zero incidents? No, but I think communicating it clearly and swiftly to the community, I think is very much appreciated. I certainly do. And I just want to thank you, you all, for doing it, whether it's the Chromebooks or anything else that's going on. So thanks a lot for that.
The other incident we had was the e-bike driving.
Oh, yeah.
The poor choice of where to drive, how to drive e-bikes. We've had parents who called in concerned. And we sent an email out to everyone just about that, because it's something the police department has been dealing with as well. So we're just trying to partner and get the message out. And Jim's been great, and the police department's been great. And if it's anything to do with computers, Dan's been great. So good team here.
Yeah, no, that's great. And again, I appreciate all of your efforts. I really do. This has certainly been a team effort. You guys have done really a wonderful job in my mind, in the communication of this. So, and proactivity. So, thank you. All right. That's all. Let's see. Next scheduled meeting. All right. Next scheduled Safety and Security Committee meeting of the year, I believe, and the last of the year, will be held on Tuesday, June 10th at 8:30. So unless there are any other comments or questions, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. See you next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye.